How's Dad?
Good, sir. Jai Hind, dosto. I am Major Mohammed Ali Shah, and today it's my great honor and a privilege that I have a very, very illustrious personality, a very illustrious general officer who has fought many a wars for the country. And today he would tell us about his life and also the burning issue for the nation right now, which is Agnipath, about Agniveer, about, and he will help us understand. Like, for example, I'm a young officer. I have limited understanding about Agnipath as yet, but whatever from my understanding, he will help us understand a lot. He needs no introduction. You all know him. He's the first specially able officer who was disabled in battle, to have commanded a battalion, thereafter a brigade, thereafter a division, and he rose to the height of being a general officer. So, ladies and gentlemen, if General Ian Cardozo can do that, there's nothing in the world that stops you from doing anything that you wish to. Sir, thank you and welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Ali. Glad to be with you on the show. And I hope I will be able to send the right message to those who are listening because we are going through very troubled times and the fate of this country is hanging in the balance because of the various policies by the government, which I'm afraid are not in the interests of the country.
Sir, so we all know about your illustrious career in the army and about your writings and about. Sir, really, we would like to know, since you mentioned your opening remarks, we would like to know your take on the burning issue of Agnipath at the moment and how do you perceive it as?
See, what we need to understand is that 4 years is just about the minimum time that a person in uniform can be trained for the multifarious tasks that he has to do in defense of the country. Competence, military competence, is a combination both of knowledge and of experience. By the time 4 years elapses, the soldier is just about getting to grips with his tasks and is about to embark on his duties to defend India. That is the time you're getting rid of him. This does not make sense. It is not logical. It is not economically sensible. You have trained the soldier for 4 years, and just about the time when he's becoming competent to do his duties, you are sending him home. I am giving you the views only with regard to the country. I'm not focusing on the individual because there are lots of issues with regard to the individual which I will not be talking about. Now, the cream of the Indian youth should be coming to the armed forces. Is that going to happen? It is not even happening now because the bureaucracy and the politician is doing its best to destroy the morale, the elan, and the competence of the armed forces. I'll give you a simple example. When I was addressing the IAS and IFS and IAS professionals at Missouri some years ago, these were 300 plus of the cream of this country. They were outstanding boys and girls. And we got on famously. For 3 days and 3 nights, we discussed every topic under the sun. And on the final day, I thought I should share with them what was hurting most soldiers in uniform. And I said, the bureaucracy is doing its best to destroy the army. Why is this happening? We are not in competition with you. You have your task to do, we have ours. Leave us alone. And after I spoke in this vein for some time, I turned to the right, where a previous High Commissioner to Pakistan was sitting on my right, and I said, Mr. So and so, it looks as though you hate us. You know what he said? He said, General, we hate you. We've always hated you. So this gives you an inkling of how much the bureaucracy hates the army. They are afraid of us. They do not like the way we live. They do not like our values because they have none themselves. So that's as far as the bureaucracy is concerned. Do you remember 1962? In 1962, we had a policeman who was evolving and pushing through a strategy called the forward policy because Pandit Nehru junked the strategy of the Vice Chief of Army Staff, General Thorat, and preferred to follow the advice of a policeman. Who do we have today? A policeman. Are we? Do we learn from past experience, or are we going to commit the same mistakes? This is a serious issue which we need to understand. You know, people might also remember, unfortunately, people don't know military history. During 1962, we had an officer who, to his political linkages, he had not commanded a company, he had not commanded a battalion, he had not commanded a brigade, but because of his political linkages, he was made a major general and then a corps commander, commanding 4 corps against the Chinese. And you know what happened. Have we learned from that experience? No, we haven't, because we are still fiddling with the promotions of the armed senior officers of the armed forces. Thanks to Bipin Rawat and what he did as far as the armed forces is concerned. The people today in uniform who cannot speak, but those of us who have retired, we are aware of what is going on. And I'm afraid, thanks to Bipin Rawat and his ilk, today people have very little time for the military hierarchy. Their behavior with regard to the tour of duty is there for you to see. So these are not good things to talk about, but if you put country first, then I'm afraid it has to be said.
Sir, really appreciate you speaking out loud and clear. And when a person of your stature gives out a message loud and clear, who has fought against the Pakistanis, who has been wounded, who has lost his leg, who has really sacrificed his entire life, I would say, his family has sacrificed for the nation. And when you speak in the interest of the nation, as per your conviction, as what per what you believe in, it really goes a lot of sense home, sir. Sir, you have seen the partition of India as well when you were merely about 10 years old, I believe.
I was 9 years old, yeah.
You were 9 years old, sir. So, do you have any memories of the partition, sir?
No, I was too young, but later on, all of us came to know what really happened. And partition is an issue which is more political than military. And I do not know, I mean, we all know what happened. We all know it was the an issue which caused millions of people to die on both sides of the border. It was the British were part of the scheme. They employed a person called Sir Cyril Radcliffe, who, with a blunt pen, drew the international border, dividing homes, villages, states, territories, and with that simple line, millions of people were killed. This should not have happened, but it did. And I don't know, I'm not in a position, I don't think any of us are in a position to say whether this was a good thing or a bad thing because of what we face today across the international border, across the line of control with Pakistan. So, yeah, it was not a good thing, but it happened.
Sir, sir, we all know of your bravery of the in the when you fought the wars. Sir, would like to know where were you in 1962? We all know about 1965 and 71. We know about your bravery, your actions over there. We would like to know about your experience in the year 1962. Where were you exactly?
Yeah, uh, I'm sure the people who are listening are aware of what happened in 1962. It was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru who continued despite everyone telling him the opposite, that Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai China was a friend, it would never attack. In 1950, that is 12 years before China attacked India, uh, General Sardar Patel, who was then the Home Minister, wrote a three-page letter to Pandit Nehru, warning him not only about China but about the other peripheral states which were inimical to India. And exactly what he said has come out to be true. So after he died in December 1950, there was nobody to stand against Nehru. And the worst part is that our intelligence system is deplorable. We had been sent to the border in Nifa in 1959, and in 1962, April, we had no inkling of what China was going to do. We were withdrawn from Subansiri in Nifa, and my battalion, the 1st Battalion, the 5th Gurkha Rifles, was sent to Palampur. How could we be so ignorant of Chinese intentions? After serving 3.5 to 4 years on the border with China, all that information, all that knowledge, all the patrols that we had carried out were wasted. Even today, the intelligence system is that we have too many rivals fighting with each other to claim credit for what they were going to tell the country, and in the process, the country loses the vital intelligence that it needs. So, in April 1962, my battalion, which was there for 3.5 years on the border, was back in India, and then we were sent as reinforcements after China attacked. At that time, we went back to reinforce four corps and four div, and we were just in time to stop the Chinese at a place called Chaco. But after a couple of weeks, the ceasefire was declared. China probably realized that it could not carry on this war because the Indian army had not been fully employed against them. Worse still, what the country did not listen to was the advice of the Indian Air Force. Recce had been carried out, and the Prime Minister was informed, and the Defense Minister was informed that China's air bases were too far. They could not support any action in Nifa or Ladakh, and that they had no aviation fuel for their aircraft. But he would prefer to listen to the American ambassador Galbraith, who said that if you use your air force, then China will attack your cities. So this is what happened in 1962. It was a tragedy of errors, and I only hope those errors are not repeated once again.
So your memories of 1965 war, you had fought very bravely. We are aware of that. And in 1971, you in fact lost your leg in 1971, sir.
Yes, Shah. In 1965, I was a company commander, and my company, uh, by this time, I had moved to 4-5 Gurkha Rifles Frontier Force. We had just come down for training because we were raised on the 1st of January 1963, and within 6 months we were on the border in J&K. We were not fully equipped, but we went and we did our job. And after some time, we in 1965 we asked for permission to come down to train because we had not been trained because we had just been raised. While we were down, Pakistan attacked India by sending, I don't know, about 30,000 infiltrators or razakars or guerrillas across the line of control. And by this time, my battalion was the only battalion available for the whole of 25 Div and 16. There was no 16 Corps at that time, 25 Div. So my company was used again and again. I lost my second in command, I lost my platoon commanders, I lost my best NCOs. My company was practically written off. But we fought well, we did well, and despite the fact that most of the units at that time who had not had enough training managed to do extremely well against Pakistan. It must be remembered that the military strategists of all time, Clausewitz and Machiavelli and Chanakya, have all said that as because both Pakistan and India said, both Pakistan is trying to say that it was a draw, nobody won. But that is not true because by that time, America had gifted 200 patent tanks to Pakistan, in addition to heavy artillery, communication systems, four squadrons of saber jets, two squadrons of starfighters. We were able to destroy 96 tanks in uh, in Khemkaran and 64 tanks in near Sialkot. So we destroyed the bulk of Pakistani armor. We destroyed their will to fight. At that time, Pakistan had got very low in ammunition, but unfortunately, the country accepted the call from the UN for a ceasefire. Otherwise, given a few more days, we could have ensured a perfect victory. In 1971, we had a great chief who didn't brook any nonsense from anyone. We had a perfect synergy between the politician, the bureaucrat, and the armed forces. That synergy was so good that we were able to ensure a magnificent victory over Pakistan. But the day that the victory was announced, the next day the army was removed from discussion at the table, and what we won on the battlefield, we lost in the negotiating table. Although we had 90, captured 93,000 prisoners, we were not able to get back 54 of our own prisoners, which indicates how much we lost at the negotiating table.
So tell us about the experience, the incident where you lost your leg in the mine blast and you had to take out your kukri and you had to actually amputate your own self and you had to ask your buddy to bury it. But he, seeing it, he didn't have the courage to do it. And then a Pakistani doctor who was taken as a prisoner of war when he performed the operation on you, sir.
Shah, this incident has been, I think, greatly exaggerated. Uh, when I stepped on a mine, my foot was dangling from ligaments and flesh, and I knew my leg could not be saved. Anyone in my position would have done the same thing because we have all been trained the same way. And I did not hack my leg off, I did not amputate it as people have tried to say. I just about managed to sever those ligaments and the foot dropped down, and I asked my batty to go and please bury it. So it was nothing very heroic, which people have tried to make out, greatly exaggerated, and I feel a little embarrassed when people talk about this incident. I don't think it needs to be discussed.
That's very, very modest of you to say, sir. It was heroic, actually. Even the bit what you told just now was also heroic, but that's your greatness. You don't consider it heroic, sir. So there has been a precedent that a battle casualty who lost a limb in the army, because of physical reasons, fitness reasons, normally does not get a command. Here
Yeah,
you proved yourselves to be fitter than the fittest, and you actually, I read about the incident where the chief had visited and you climbed up the hill before the general, and then he asked, how did you come up? He said, I climbed.
yeah,
And then he
that's
said,
true. That's true, Shah. That is something which, uh, well, it is no exaggeration. This is what exactly happened. But the thing is that I had, I was, you see, what had happened was at that time there was no policy for the career planning of battle casualties. Although I passed out pretty high in the senior, I was pretty high in the seniority of my course. Uh, I was not promoted. My course mates were promoted in command of their units. They had finished command of their units. They were doing their staff. They had nearly finished their staff. I was still a major. So I felt pretty bad that uh, was I being punished for being a battle casualty? Was I being punished for being wounded in battle? Why did the Army, Navy, and Air Force think about these things? And at about that time, finally, sorry, since World War, the policy at that time was that no battle casualty could be promoted in command of troops. They could only be promoted up to brigadier's rank on the staff or instructional duties. Only two officers were promoted by that time: Brigadier Rati Sani of the Gurkhas and Brigadier Jenkins from the Madras Regiment. Only two officers since World War II. Now, this was not something very great for the morale of battle casualties. While I was in hospital, I read a book called Reach for the Sky. It was about Douglas Bader, the Royal Air Force officer who lost both his legs, not in battle, he lost it in a traffic accident. But the British were so great that they allowed him to fly with two wooden legs. And with those two wooden legs, he shot down 21 German fighter planes. He became an air ace. So if I felt that if Douglas Bader could do that, why couldn't I do that in the infantry? I had no idea as to what I would do, how I would do it, when I would do it. I just thought, let me take one day at a time and look and to change challenges into opportunities. And that is what I did. And when I was in Army headquarters, uh, it was announced that there would be a physical proficiency test for all officers. The battle casualties, there was no mention that battle casualties or people who are disabled would not take part, so I took part. The, uh, the officer conducting the test was a little taken aback when he saw me wearing trousers because everybody were wearing shorts and shirts and PT shoes, and I was wearing boots and a trouser. However, he was good enough to allow me to do the test. And when I in the 2 mile test, I left about seven officers with two legs behind me. He was very impressed. He wrote a nice note about me uh, with regard to my performance, and that helped in convincing the. By that time, a new policy had come by which people who were low medical category were allowed to be promoted on the staff, and I was posted to MO Directorate. And the DGMO was then General Vaidya, Mahavir Chakra and Ba. And he said, which battalion have you commanded? So I told him, I haven't commanded a battalion. So he said, don't you want to command a battalion? I said, yes, I do. So he said, then what's stopping you? Make an application. I made the application. He asked for my physical performance test and he put it up to the vice chief. And the vice chief said, send him with me. I'm going to J&K. I need a staff officer. So I went with him. And they were visiting the posts on in a chopper because there are two pilots and the two passengers. There was no place for me. So I was taking the vehicles down by on the road. At the last post, I realized that there was an officer from my battalion who had been posted to another regiment who was commanding that post. So I said, let me go and meet him. So I climbed up to that post about 2,800 feet. I don't know exactly about 2,800 feet. And I met him. I didn't think much of it. And we had breakfast together. And after that, the vice chief landed in a chopper. He was surprised to see me there. And he said, how have you come here? He probably thought that because I'm an NDA officer, I had my connection with the Air Force and I got a chopper and I came here. So I was a little taken aback and I said, I climbed, sir. He says, you can climb. I said, sir, I can do many things which my senior officers are not aware of. He says, what do you mean? I said, sir, the army, the senior hierarchy of the army has not given battle casualties a chance to prove themselves that we are as good, if not better than people with two legs. So he didn't was not very happy with what I said, but he took up the case with the chief. And the chief said, send him with me, I'm going to Ladakh. So I went with the chief to Ladakh. We climbed over snow and ice, etc. And then the chief came back and said, I've seen this boy, he's excellent. Uh, Send me his file. He asked for my file and he wrote on that file, yes, give him a battalion and all other war disabled officers who are not taking shelter of their wounds. And that is how promotion opened up. Only I did not realize at that time it was only up to the rank of colonel, COs of battalions. Later on, I was approved for promotion to brigadier, but they wouldn't give me a brigade. So I said, if I can command a battalion where higher levels of physical fitness are required than a brigadier, why can't I command a brigade? They said there's no precedence. So I wrote to the chief and I said, sir, I have the honor to inform you that I have been approved for promotion to brigadier's rank, but MS Branch seems to have a hang up with regard to my physical ability, and they say I cannot command a brigade because there is no precedence. Sir, if I can command a battalion which requires higher standards of physical fitness than that of a brigade, there is no reason why I can't command a brigade. And he saw the point and said, yes, why not? If there's no precedence, create one. And that is how promotion opened up for all ranks for battle casualties. And I am very proud of the fact that yes, I was able to do this. And after that, three officers reached Army Commander's rank. General Yogi Sharma became the first officer to be promoted to Army Commander. Then there was Joshi, who was the head of the mechanized forces, and then there was Vijay Oberoi, who was vice chief. So that is what happened, and that is what is something I'm quite proud of.
Sir, that's so inspiring, and it's really, really inspiring. I was literally having goosebumps listening to you, sir.
Thank
Sir,
you.
so I met you in the year 2006 when you had come to Nagaland, to Dimapur, when you written a book. And we have that book with us. And I was wearing this tie at that time, the three-quart tie in the MSIB. And that time I did not know that you were especially able at that time. So the GOC was then, I was doing the HCB, received you, and you went in. In the evening, we met you over for cocktails and dinner. Oh, it's only after your departure I was aware of you, but I did not know it. You can't make out, you couldn't make out at all that you did not have a limb at all.
Shah, I also like to inform the listeners that for the last 10 years, Vijay Oberoi, who also lost a leg in 1965, and I, at 20 battle casualties, have been taking part in the Mumbai Marathon every year in January. Of course, it is not a marathon. It's not 42 kilometers. We do what is called the Dream Run, which is just about 6 kilometers. But it is it is being done by us to tell the world that we are not that disabled and that we are still useful and we can prove to be useful to the country and to the army despite the fact that we lost a leg. And so that's what it is. Uh, but now as time goes on, it's getting difficult because there has been much muscle wastage. Stump has become bony and there are problems, but that's okay.
So, so there have been various articles written on you, a lot of motivational stories have been written on you, various documentaries have been made on you, and now a feature film is being made on you in which Akshay Kumar is acting Gurkha. So, how do you feel about that, and what has been your level of involvement with that film, sir?
It's like this, Shah. Firstly, with regard to the book you talked about, my book on the 1971 war was released by Penguin on the 23rd of June in 2021, and in less than a year, it has been printed three times. Uh, so I feel quite good about that. And my next book is going to be released next month. The title is Kartus Saab. It's about my autobiography. Uh, I've been asked about it many years ago to write my story, but we've been brought up in the army not to blow our own trumpet and beat our own drum. But a couple of incidents took place which made me think again. While we were in Trivandrum, we had gone for a picnic to Kovalam beach, and a 12-year-old boy was pulled out by a wave. I had taught him to float, and he was pulled out by the undercurrent, and we shouted for help. There was nobody who had the ability or the competence to bring him back. I had to take off my leg. I had to be helped by two young captains to be launched into the sea because I can't hop with one leg in Chikkat. You know what Chikkat is? Wet sand. So I was launched into the sea, and got a long story short, I managed to save him. But it once and for all proved to people that sometimes a battle casualty is better than a man with two legs.
So you have really broken the barrier, the shackles. You have proved to the world that what a person, world perceives that a battle casualty or a person who is especially able or disabled cannot do. You can do it much better than any of them. Sir, it's been such an honor to speak with you, and I thank you very much for your time. Sir, any message you would like to give to our viewers? Any last message, parting note from your side, sir?
Yeah, I would like to tell people, particularly with what is happening today in the country, that you need to do what is right, irrespective of the consequences. Always put country first and self last. And do what is right, irrespective of the consequences. I've already said that. And you can do no wrong as long as you put country first.
So thank you very much, sir. Truly grateful to you, sir. It's been such an
Thank you.
honor to be in conversation with you, sir.
Thank you,
Jan,
Shah.
sir.
Jai Hind. God bless. My regards to your father.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Sir, Jan, sir.